Cowboy saw an Apache woman washing her clothes by the river and noticed her dress was torn to pieces. Caleb Turner had always believed that the early hours of the morning held a kind of magic that the rest of the day could never quite recapture. The soft light, the cool air, and the silence of the wide Arizona frontier made him feel as if the whole world was pausing just long enough for him to breathe. On this particular morning, he felt that same familiar comfort as he rode along the dusty trail. His horse, a calm chestnut mare named Daisy, walked with a steady rhythm, her ears occasionally flicking toward the sound of distant birds. Caleb enjoyed these slow rides. They gave him time to think, to observe, and to appreciate the land that stretched endlessly in every direction. The land was open and grand, filled with rising hills, scattered bushes, and tall grasses swaying gently in the breeze. Far in the distance, red rock formations stood proudly under the pale sky. The sun had only just begun to rise, casting long shadows and painting everything in a soft golden glow. It was peaceful, so peaceful that Caleb almost forgot how unsettled things had been in recent times. But even so, he tried not to let worry disturb the quiet morning. He was on his way to a small trading post that sat a few miles beyond the river. The post sold tools, fabric, sugar, and the occasional treat like sweet biscuits or canned peaches. Caleb planned to pick up supplies for the ranch where he worked. The ranch owner, Mr. Dawson, trusted Caleb with the job because he was careful, respectful, and always returned with exactly what was needed. Caleb liked that responsibility. It made him feel steady and useful in a world that sometimes felt unpredictable. As Daisy carried him forward, he glanced over the landscape with soft eyes. He noticed the tiny sparkles of sunlight bouncing off dew-covered plants and the faint prints of animals that had walked across the trail before dawn. He even spotted a jackrabbit darting quickly into the tall grass. It was the kind of morning when a person could feel grateful just to be alive and outdoors. The river came into view gradually, appearing like a smooth ribbon of silver lying between the banks. It wasn't a fast river, but it flowed with a clear, gentle movement that always calmed Caleb's mind. He often stopped near it to give Daisy a drink or to stretch his legs. The sound of flowing water had a way of grounding him, reminding him of simple things, rest, patience, and the beauty of nature. As he approached the riverbank, he noticed something unusual. There was a faint sound carried on the breeze, water splashing in a rhythm that didn't match the natural flow of the river. Caleb slowed Daisy's steps. The sound wasn't loud or alarming. It was soft, almost like someone washing something in the river. For a moment, he wondered if it might be another traveler or a rancher doing laundry during a long trip, but he hadn't seen anyone else on the trail that morning. Curiosity moved through him, gentle but persistent. He guided Daisy toward a bend in the river where a cluster of tall cottonwood trees grew close together, their leaves shimmering lightly in the wind. As he reached the trees, he spotted someone at the water's edge, a woman. She was kneeling near a large, smooth rock, dipping fabric into the river and lifting it again with careful movements. Her long, dark hair hung over one shoulder, catching glimmers of sunlight when she shifted. Caleb stopped a good distance away, not wanting to startle her. He could tell from her clothing and the way she carried herself that she was an Apache woman. He had met Apache people before, though only briefly. Some came to the trading post from time to time, and he had always done his best to show kindness and respect. He believed that all people deserved that, regardless of where they came from. He watched quietly for a moment and then noticed something that caught his attention even more deeply. The woman's dress looked worn, not just from age but from heavy use. Some parts were torn, especially near the sleeves and hem, as if they had been caught on branches or rubbed against rough surfaces. The fabric seemed thin from repeated washing and long travel. Even from where he sat, Caleb could sense that she had gone through something tiring or difficult, not dangerous or violent, but simply challenging, the way long journeys under the sun could be. Still, he remained where he was, allowing her space. He didn't want her to feel watched or unsafe. Daisy stood quietly beside him, lowering her head to nibble on a patch of grass. Caleb kept one hand on the reins, more out of habit than caution. The woman continued washing for a few minutes, unaware of his presence. Her movements were slow and somewhat weary, as if she had been traveling for several days without much rest. She paused occasionally, rubbing her arm or pushing her hair back from her face. Something about her posture made Caleb feel a wave of sympathy. She didn't look frightened, just tired, carrying the quiet weight of someone who had been on her own for too long. Finally, when she lifted the cloth to wring it out, she turned just enough to notice him. Their eyes met across the space between them. Caleb immediately lifted a hand in a gentle greeting, slow, open, and friendly. He stayed still, letting her see that he meant no harm. Her eyes widened in surprise, but she didn't jump or run. Instead, she straightened up slightly, looking at him with cautious curiosity. "Morning," Caleb said softly, keeping his voice calm and warm. He didn't move closer. He simply let his words carry across the quiet air. The woman hesitated, then gave a small nod. She didn't speak, but her expression softened just a little. Caleb wasn't sure if she spoke English, but he hoped his tone had made his intention clear. He was not there to disturb her. He continued to sit still, allowing her to decide what to do next. A bird landed on a branch above them, chirping cheerfully. The river flowed steadily. The whole scene felt delicate, like a moment that needed patience and respect. After a pause, the woman dipped her cloth back into the water and resumed washing. Her movements were slightly slower, as if she were aware of him now and unsure how much to relax. Caleb wanted to make the moment easier for her, so he gently guided Daisy a step back, giving her more room. He kept his gaze friendly but not intrusive. Daisy snorted softly, lifting her head. The woman glanced at the horse, and for the first time, a small hint of a smile appeared on her face. Caleb felt a bit of relief. Animals often helped bridge gaps between people. He felt tempted to ask if she needed help or if she was lost, but he didn't want to overwhelm her. So instead, he simply said, "I'm heading toward the trading post, just passing through." She paused again, listening. Slowly, she nodded, acknowledging his words. Caleb took a deep breath. He didn't know her story, but something told him she had been traveling alone for longer than was comfortable. Her dress, her tired shoulders, and her quiet, careful manner all suggested that she was carrying more responsibility than most people did. He didn't want to pry. He didn't want to assume anything about her life or her reasons for being there. But his heart felt a gentle pull to offer at least a little kindness. Nothing loud or bold, just something simple and respectful. "If you need water for drinking," he said softly, pointing toward the side of his saddle, "I have some, fresh from this morning." She looked at the canteen, then at him. Her expression held a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. After a moment, she shook her head politely, signaling that she was fine. Caleb respected that immediately. He nodded. "All right, just wanted to offer." Another quiet moment passed between them. Despite the silence, Caleb felt something meaningful settle into the air, a small, unspoken understanding. The river flowed gently, the leaves rustled softly, and the morning light continued to grow brighter, warming the cool air. The woman finished washing the last piece of fabric and laid it neatly on a rock where the sunlight could dry it. Then she dipped her hands into the river, letting the water run over her skin. When she lifted her head again, Caleb noticed how calm her expression had become. She no longer looked startled by his presence. Instead, she looked thoughtful, evaluating him with quiet eyes that seemed wise and observant. He wondered where she had come from, what kind of journey she was on, and whether she had friends or family waiting for her somewhere beyond the hills. But he didn't ask. He knew that some questions should be guided by trust, not curiosity, and trust took time. She rose from the riverbank slowly, brushing her skirt gently. The torn parts of her dress fluttered in the breeze, but she carried herself with dignity. Caleb found himself admiring the strength in her posture, not loud strength, but the kind that grows quietly inside a person through everyday challenges. Finally, she looked at him again and gave a small, genuine nod. It wasn't a greeting, nor was it a farewell. It was something in between, an acknowledgement of shared space and mutual respect. Caleb touched the brim of his hat politely. Daisy shifted her weight, ready to move when he was. He took one last look at the peaceful scene. The river, the sunlight, the woman carefully tending to her clothes, and felt grateful for the gentle, unexpected encounter. Then, with patience and steady movements, he turned Daisy slightly, allowing the woman to continue her morning without feeling watched or crowded. As he rode away, he couldn't help glancing back once. The woman was still by the river, arranging her clothes with calm hands. Her presence in the morning light made the whole scene feel almost like a painting, quiet, meaningful, and unforgettable. Caleb continued down the trail, carrying with him a soft warmth in his chest. He didn't know what would happen next, but he sensed that this encounter, simple as it was would linger in his memory far longer than he expected. Caleb had only gone a short distance down the trail when something inside him made him slow his horse again. He didn't turn around right away, but he felt a soft pull of concern in his chest. It wasn't worry in a dramatic sense, more like a quiet feeling that the moment he had shared with the woman by the river wasn't finished yet. He had seen the tiredness in her eyes, the way she moved carefully as if her body needed rest. He didn't know her story, but he sensed she had been through more than a simple morning chore. Her dress had been worn thin, and her hands carried a kind of tiredness that didn't come from just washing clothes. Daisy walked forward at a gentle pace, but Caleb's mind stayed behind near the river. He thought about the way the woman had looked at him, calm but cautious, strong but weary. She had not spoken, yet her silence had told him plenty. Someone who was comfortable or settled rarely carried that kind of quiet heaviness. When he finally reached a shady patch beneath a lone mesquite tree, he pulled on the reins and stopped. Daisy flicked her tail, looking content to take a break. Caleb took off his hat and wiped the light layer of morning warmth from his forehead. He took a sip of water, then leaned forward in his saddle, thinking. He wasn't someone who liked getting involved in matters that weren't his own. Mr. Dawson often told him that the frontier was filled with people who needed space more than anything else, space to think, space to heal, space to be who they were. And Caleb respected that. But this situation felt different. The woman hadn't looked like someone taking a peaceful morning break. Dee looked like someone who had been traveling a while. Someone who hadn't had the comfort of a warm meal or a friendly face in days. He glanced back over his shoulder, though he couldn't see the river from where he was. Daisy snorted softly, as if sensing his indecision. "I know, girl," Caleb murmured to the horse. "It ain't my business, but still," he couldn't shake the feeling. Finally, he decided he should at least make sure she was all right. Not to intrude, not to follow her closely, but just to make sure she wasn't alone in a worrying way. The land could be difficult at times, not dangerous, just challenging. People needed kindness, even if just in the form of quiet company or a helpful gesture. So he turned Daisy around and guided her slowly back toward the river, careful to approach from a respectful distance. He wasn't planning to surprise the woman or make her uncomfortable. He simply wanted to be nearby long enough to know she was not in need of assistance. When the river came into sight again, he noticed she had moved a little downstream. She was spreading her clothes along the sunlit rocks so they could dry more evenly. She worked gently and patiently, her hands careful as if each item was precious to her. Caleb kept Daisy behind a row of bushes so he wouldn't appear suddenly. He watched for a moment, noting how she stopped occasionally to stretch her back or rub her hands. That same tiredness was still there. Finally, when she stood up and picked up a small woven bag, Caleb decided to step out from behind the bushes but kept a respectful distance. The woman looked up immediately, recognizing him. He lifted his hand again in a light, friendly gesture. She didn't seem startled this time, just curious about why he had returned. "I didn't mean to come back and bother you," Caleb said gently. "I just wanted to make sure everything's all right with you." The woman blinked slowly, her eyes softening as she looked at him. She didn't respond with words, but the slight nod she gave him carried quiet appreciation. Caleb took a step closer, but not too close. He spoke softly, choosing each word with care. "You look like you might have been traveling for a while." She hesitated, then nodded again. Her fingers tightened slightly around the strap of her bag. Caleb noticed her glance toward the trail, then at her drying clothes, and finally back at him. It was clear she was trying to decide whether she could trust him enough to share even a small piece of her truth. Finally, she touched her chest lightly and said, "Nay, Ellie." Her voice was soft, and the way she said her name made it sound musical and calm. Caleb felt a warm surprise. She had trusted him enough to say her name. He smiled gently. "Nay, Ellie," he repeated respectfully. "That's a beautiful name." She nodded shyly, then she pointed to him. "Caleb," he said, touching his chest the way she had. "My name is Caleb Turner." A trace of a smile flickered across her lips, as if she appreciated the simple introduction. Now that they had exchanged names, the air between them felt lighter. Caleb felt encouraged to offer a little more kindness. "If you're headed somewhere," he said, keeping his voice gentle, "I can ride along the trail for a bit, not close, just enough so you're not alone." Naomi looked down, thinking deeply. Her fingers rubbed the edge of her sleeve, brushing against one of the worn, frayed sections. She wasn't afraid of him, that much Caleb could tell, but she was thoughtful, considering whether his presence would be a help or a burden. After a long moment, she gave a small nod. Not a big one, not an eager one, just a quiet agreement. Caleb exhaled softly in relief. "All right," he said kindly, "only if you're comfortable with it." Naomi gathered her drying clothes and folded them carefully. Caleb admired how precise she was. Every movement she made was gentle, almost graceful. She placed each piece into her bag, arranging them neatly so they would not wrinkle. While she worked, Caleb looked around the area. The river sparkled in the mid-morning light and the breeze was growing warmer. A few colorful birds hopped around the rocks, chirping softly. It was a peaceful place, the kind of place where a person could rest for hours if they had the luxury of time. But Caleb could tell that Naomi didn't plan to stay long. She moved with the manner of someone with a destination in mind, even if the path to it was uncertain. When she had gathered everything, she tied the top of her bag securely and slung it over her shoulder. She straightened up and looked toward Caleb, waiting for him to lead the way. He mounted Daisy slowly, giving her time to see each movement so she wouldn't feel uneasy. Once he was seated, he nodded gently. "You ready?" he asked. She stepped toward the trail and nodded. They began walking together, Caleb on Daisy and Naomi walking beside them. He kept his pace slow so she wouldn't feel rushed. She seemed comfortable walking, her steps steady even though her shoes were well worn. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It felt natural, like two people traveling with mutual respect. Caleb noticed how Naomi looked around constantly, not with fear but with awareness. She took in the shapes of the distant hills, the movement of the grass, and the changing colors of the sky. She seemed connected to the land in a way that Caleb admired. After some time, she pointed to a cluster of small trees ahead. Caleb understood she wanted to rest there. He guided Daisy to the shade, and Naomi sat on the soft grass, taking out a small bundle from her bag. It held a piece of flat bread, wrapped carefully. She broke it into 2 pieces and offered one to Caleb. He blinked in surprise. "Are you sure?" he asked gently. She nodded firmly. Caleb accepted the bread with gratitude. It tasted simple but good, soft inside, with a hint of something earthy and warm. He could tell she had made it herself. After they finished eating, Caleb offered his canteen again. This time she accepted it, taking only a small sip before handing it back with a quiet "thank you." Her voice was soft but steady, and the way she said those words carried sincerity. They continued walking after the short rest. The sun rose higher, casting longer shadows. Caleb noticed that Naomi's steps slowed slightly, not enough to show weakness but enough to reveal her exhaustion. "You want a ride for a bit?" Caleb asked kindly. "Daisy can carry the both of us." Naomi shook her head quickly, not wanting to burden the horse. Caleb respected that. Instead, he slowed the pace even more, allowing her room to rest while still moving forward. Finally, after about an hour of traveling like that, Naomi spoke again. "I look for family," she said slowly, choosing her English words with care. Caleb nodded gently. "I understand." She placed her hand over her heart and whispered something in her own language. The tone carried affection and hope. Caleb didn't understand the words, but he understood the feeling. He felt a quiet sadness for her, knowing she was searching for loved ones. He hoped with all his heart that she would find them safe and sound. People deserved to be with their families. As they continued their slow journey along the trail, he felt his respect for her grow stronger. She was brave in a quiet, enduring way. She walked with determination, even though she was tired. She carried hope, even though she didn't know what she would find. Caleb kept an eye on her, not in a protective way, but in a supportive way. He wanted her to feel she didn't have to face the long road entirely alone. Sometimes kindness wasn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes kindness was as simple as walking beside someone at their pace. By the time they stopped again in the shade of a broad cottonwood tree, Caleb felt certain of one thing. Meeting Naomi that morning was no accident. The land had brought them together for a reason, even if he didn't yet know what that reason was. Caleb and Naomi rested beneath the cottonwood tree for a good while, letting the cool shade settle over them like a soft blanket. The breeze rustled through the leaves above, creating a soothing whisper that blended beautifully with the quiet flow of the distant river. Caleb sat on the ground with his back against the tree trunk, while Naomi sat a few steps away, stretching her tired legs. Even though they barely spoke, the silence felt comfortable, as if they had known each other far longer than just a few hours. After a moment, Caleb noticed Naomi looking at the horizon with a thoughtful, distant expression. She held her woven bag close to her side and traced one finger along the edge as if the familiar touch comforted her. He could tell she was thinking deeply about something, perhaps about her family or the long road still ahead. The gentleness in her eyes made Caleb wonder about the people she cared for and the life she had lived before waking up alone beside the river that morning. When she finally looked back at him, she gave a small nod, letting him know she was ready to continue. Caleb stood and dusted off his pants before helping her gather her things. He made sure not to move too fast or make any sudden gestures. Trust between them was still growing, delicate and meaningful like a young plant finding its roots. As they started walking again, the sun climbed higher in the sky, warming the earth beneath their feet. Daisy trotted beside Caleb, content and relaxed, occasionally nudging Naomi's shoulder as if she wanted attention. Naomi reached out and gently patted the horse's neck, and Daisy leaned into her touch, clearly enjoying the affection. Caleb smiled at the simple interaction. Animals had a way of understanding people, especially people who carried kindness in their hearts. Naomi seemed to carry that naturally. They followed a narrow trail that wound through a patch of soft red earth dotted with wildflowers. The bright purple blooms stood tall in the sunlight, and Naomi slowed down to admire them. She crouched carefully and touched one of the flowers as if greeting an old friend. Caleb watched quietly, feeling a warm sense of peace settle over him. She had a way of seeing beauty in small things, and he appreciated that more than he could explain. As they walked further, the land opened up again, revealing gentle rolling hills. The sky above stretched endlessly, a bright blue that made Caleb feel both grounded and free at the same time. Every now and then he glanced at Naomi, checking if she was doing all right. Her steps were steady, though he could tell from the way she pressed her lips together that she was thinking, perhaps about the family she was searching for. Caleb wanted to ask something, but he didn't want to be intrusive. So he kept his voice soft and careful as he said, "If there's anything you want to tell me, I'm here to listen." Naomi looked at him for a moment, then looked down at the trail. She drew in a slow breath and let it out gently before she began speaking in her quiet, musical voice. "I was with my people," she said, choosing her English words carefully. "Then everyone moved. I did not." Caleb listened with full attention. He didn't push her to tell more than she felt comfortable with. He simply nodded, letting her know she wasn't alone. Naomi continued slowly. "They went to find new place, new camp. I walked behind, but path changed. I lost the way." Her voice stayed calm, but Caleb could hear the weight behind her words. Traveling alone on the frontier wasn't easy, even in peaceful times. Losing the path, being separated, trying to catch up, it all sounded exhausting, and he admired her strength in continuing forward despite it. "I'm sorry you got separated," Caleb said softly, "but you're doing the right thing by looking for them." "And I'll walk with you as long as you want me to?" Naomi offered a small smile. It wasn't big or bright, but it carried genuine warmth. "Thank you," she said. They walked in silence again for a while, the trail stretching long and calm in front of them. After some time, they reached a small hill that overlooked a wide stretch of land. From there, they could see far into the distance, trees, a few clusters of bushes, and a path that veered toward the trading post. Naomi stopped and looked out across the land with focused eyes. Caleb waited, knowing she was scanning for signs, footprints, smoke, or anything that might hint at where her people had gone. She stood very still, the breeze tugging gently at her hair. After a long moment, she pointed toward the south, her expression thoughtful. "Maybe they go there," she said softly. Caleb followed her gaze. The southern path led toward a familiar area where a few friendly camps sometimes gathered to trade. He had passed by that way before, and he remembered how welcoming those camps could be. If Naomi's family had headed there, it was a reasonable direction to follow. "We can go that way," Caleb offered gently. "It's a bit farther, but Daisy and I don't mind the longer road." Naomi nodded, grateful for his willingness to help. She looked calmer now, as if having a direction brought her a sense of grounding. They continued south, moving at a comfortable pace. The sunlight grew warmer, but a cool breeze helped keep their journey pleasant. A hawk circled overhead, gliding gracefully in the open blue sky. Naomi watched it for a moment, her eyes thoughtful. Caleb noticed how connected she seemed to the natural world, how she understood its rhythm and language without needing words. As they walked, Naomi began to share small things from her life, not big stories but little details that gave Caleb a glimpse into her world. She told him about her younger brother, who she described with a fond smile. "He is very fast," she said, laughing softly. "He runs like wind," Caleb chuckled. "Sounds like he could outrun me." Naomi nodded eagerly. "Yes, he outrun everyone." Her eyes softened even more when she talked about her mother. "She makes good bread," Naomi said quietly. "Better than this." She tapped the small piece of flatbread she had shared earlier. Caleb smiled. "It was pretty good," he replied gently. Naomi shook her head with playful certainty. "My mother makes the best." Her tone was confident, filled with affection, and Caleb found himself smiling at her pride. Hearing her talk about her family made him wish even more that she would find them soon. She deserved the comfort of familiar voices and loving arms after her long days of walking alone. By midday, they reached a calm area where the trail dipped into a small valley with soft grass and golden brush. Caleb suggested they stop for lunch. Naomi agreed, and they found a spot under a tall juniper tree that offered plenty of shade. Caleb removed the small bag tied to Daisy's saddle and took out a piece of dried fruit and a small roll he had packed. He split the food evenly between the two of them. Naomi accepted her portion with a quiet "thank you," then sat cross-legged on the ground. They ate slowly, savoring the simple meal. The breeze felt pleasant, and the quiet valley gave them a safe, calm feeling. After finishing her food, Naomi looked at Caleb with thoughtful eyes. She reached into her woven bag and pulled out a small handmade bracelet made of thin braided fibers. She held it out to him. Caleb blinked in surprise. "For me," she nodded. Slowly, he reached out and accepted the bracelet. The fibers were soft and carefully woven, and he could tell it had taken time to make. It wasn't fancy, but it held meaning, gratitude, trust, and connection. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "I'll keep it with me." Naomi watched him tie it around his wrist, and a gentle smile warmed her face. It was the first time all day he saw her smile fully, and it made the afternoon feel brighter. The trust she had begun to show him felt like a gift he wanted to protect. As they continued their journey after the break, the sky slowly transformed into the soft golden shades of late afternoon. Birds fluttered between bushes, and small animals scurried across the trail from time to time. Caleb told Naomi small stories about ranch life. The time Daisy had wandered into the barn looking for apples, or the time he had accidentally fallen asleep while leaning on a fence and scared himself awake. Naomi listened with interest, sometimes laughing quietly at his stories. She didn't always understand every English word, but she understood enough, and her bright reactions encouraged Caleb to share a bit more with her. Their steps grew lighter as they talked, as if the weight of the long road eased with companionship. Eventually, the trail began to slope upward again. They climbed gently until they reached a place where the land opened wide once more. The golden light of evening stretched across the hills, painting everything in warm color. From this vantage point, they could see even farther south, toward the place Naomi hoped her family would be. She paused, looking long and carefully, her eyes scanning the vast land. Caleb sat on Daisy silently, giving her the space she needed to observe. After a moment, Naomi closed her eyes and placed her hand over her heart, whispering softly in her own language. Her words were filled with emotion, hope, longing, and strength. Caleb didn't understand the language, but he understood the feeling, and he stayed by her side without saying a word, letting the peaceful evening light wrap gently around them. It was then that Caleb realized this moment. The quiet hill, the warm evening sky, and the shared silence was a turning point. Not dramatic or loud, but meaningful. Standing together on that hilltop, he felt something shift inside him. He wasn't just helping Naomi anymore. He was connected to her journey in a way that felt deeper than simple kindness. He felt a quiet promise forming in his heart. He would see this through with her, no matter how far the trail stretched ahead. Caleb and Naomi walked down the hill slowly, letting the golden evening light guide their steps. The day had been long, but somehow the feeling of companionship made the journey easier for both of them. The shadows stretched across the land like soft blankets, and the sky began to shift from bright gold to a gentle peach color. A few clouds floated lazily above them, glowing softly as if the sun were painting them from underneath. Daisy walked quietly beside them, her ears turning now and then as she listened to the sounds of the land. There was something peaceful in the way the world moved at that hour. Even the air felt calmer, as if everything around them was taking a gentle breath before night arrived. Caleb glanced at Naeli from time to time. Her steps were graceful, but he noticed a slight tiredness in her shoulders. The long days of walking were catching up to her, yet she never complained. She simply moved forward with the strength that came from hope and determination. Caleb admired that about her. He had met many people on the frontier, but few carried such quiet courage. As they continued along the trail, they saw small signs of evening life. Rabbits hopped out from bushes and disappeared into the tall grass. A pair of quails hurried across the path, their tiny feet moving so fast it made both of them smile. Somewhere behind them, the river murmured faintly, still sending its calming voice across the land. After some time, Caleb said softly, "We should find a place to rest before it gets dark. The nights can get cool around here." Naeli nodded in agreement. She lifted her gaze and scanned the landscape with thoughtful eyes. After a moment, she pointed toward a cluster of trees gathered near a gentle slope. Caleb followed her direction and noticed a small gap between the trees that looked perfect for shelter. It wasn't a cave or anything like that, but it was a peaceful area with soft grass and enough shade to feel safe. They walked toward it together, and when they reached the trees, they found the space even more comfortable than it had looked from afar. The branches formed a natural canopy and soft leaves covered the ground. It felt like a quiet little room created by nature itself. "This will do just fine," Caleb said with a relaxed smile. Naeli nodded and set her woven bag down carefully. Daisy lowered her head to munch on some grass, and Caleb removed her saddle so she could rest comfortably. He tied the horse to a strong branch so she wouldn't wander off during the night, then brushed her mane gently. Naeli watched him for a moment, her eyes soft with appreciation. She then reached into her bag and pulled out a small blanket made of tightly woven fibers. It was simple but well crafted, with patterns that reflected her people's traditions. She spread it on the ground and sat down slowly, stretching her legs. Caleb sat about a few steps away, giving her space while still staying close enough for conversation. The cool breeze carried the scent of juniper and distant flowers. It made the moment feel calm and comforting. After they settled, Caleb reached into his saddlebag and took out a small tin of dried fruit and nuts. He offered some to Naeli, and she accepted with a gentle smile. They ate slowly, savoring the simple meal as the sky deepened into soft tones of lavender and blue. The first stars began to appear in the sky, tiny dots of light sparkling like distant lanterns. Naeli looked up at them thoughtfully. She pointed at one of the brightest stars and whispered something in her language. Her voice was soft, almost like a prayer or a memory. Caleb listened respectfully. Even though he didn't understand her words, the warmth in her voice touched him. After a moment, she spoke in English, her tone gentle. "That star, my mother, she always look at it." She placed a hand over her heart. "She say it brings peace." Caleb looked up at the star. It shimmered gently, steady and comforting. "It's a beautiful one," he said softly. "Your mother sounds like a wise woman." Naeli smiled, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "She is." The conversation drifted into a peaceful silence. They listened to the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant chirping of crickets. Caleb leaned back against the tree trunk, feeling grateful for the quiet moment. He could sense that Naeli felt the same. After a while, she spoke again, her voice quiet but steady. "When I was small, my father teach me the paths," she said thoughtfully. "He say, the land talks. We must listen." Caleb tilted his head, curious. "How does the land talk?" She paused, searching for simple words. "It talks with signs," she explained. "With wind, with birds, with grass. If you listen, you can know where to go." Caleb nodded slowly. He didn't know much about reading the land, but he respected the wisdom she shared. "That sounds beautiful," he said sincerely. "I wish I could hear it the way you do." Naeli looked at him with soft eyes. "You listen," she said warmly. "You are kind." Kind people hear many things. Caleb wasn't sure how to respond. Her words touched him more deeply than he expected. He cleared his throat gently and smiled faintly. "I try my best," he said quietly. Naeli nodded with gentle certainty, as if she believed in his goodness without hesitation. That simple trust meant more to Caleb than he could say. As night settled fully around them, the air grew cooler, but not uncomfortably so. Caleb pulled a small blanket from his saddlebag and wrapped it around his shoulders. Naeli adjusted her blanket as well, tucking it around her legs. They both watched the stars shimmer above. knowing they were safe and protected in the little pocket of calm created by the trees. After a while, Caleb asked softly, "Do you think your family might be at the camp to the south?" Naomi hesitated for a moment before replying. "Maybe," she said. "They know I walk slow, they wait sometimes, but this time path was long." Caleb nodded with understanding. He didn't want to imagine her wandering alone for so many days, but he admired how she stayed strong through all of it. "They'll be happy to see you," he said gently, "and we'll find them, I know we will." Naomi looked at him with grateful eyes. "I hope," she whispered. "I hope every step," Caleb smiled softly. "We'll keep walking those steps together," he said. Naomi's expression warmed and she nodded. Gradually, the events of the day began to settle into her body. Caleb watched as her posture softened and her eyes became heavier with sleep. She had walked a great distance and the rest was well-deserved. "You should sleep," Caleb said quietly. "We have another day ahead of us." She nodded slowly, stretching her legs and laying her head gently on her folded blanket. Caleb stayed awake a bit longer, keeping watch in a relaxed way. He didn't feel like a guard or protector. He simply wanted her to rest without worry. The night sounds were soft and peaceful, and the air carried a calmness that made him feel grounded. After some time, Naomi fell asleep, her breathing slow and steady. Caleb listened to the rhythm of it, feeling strangely comforted. He didn't know her before this morning, yet she felt like someone he had known for a long time. As the hours passed, Caleb eventually leaned back and allowed his own eyes to close. He drifted into sleep slowly, trusting the quiet night around him. The stars above continued to shimmer like old friends watching over them. When morning arrived, it came with a soft glow that filtered through the branches. Gentle sunlight touched their faces, waking them little by little. Birds chirped their cheerful songs, and the breeze carried the promise of a new day. Caleb opened his eyes first and stretched his arms. Daisy stood nearby, calm and content as she grazed on fresh grass. Naomi stirred soon after, blinking softly as she pushed her hair back. Her expression looked more rested, and that made Caleb happy. "Good morning," he said warmly. She smiled quietly. "Good morning." They packed their things carefully, folding blankets and organizing their bags. Caleb saddled Daisy again, checking every strap to make sure it was secure. Naomi watched the morning light settle comfortably over the land, her eyes filled with renewed hope. "Ready for the next steps?" Caleb asked gently. Naomi nodded, her face steady and determined. "Yes," she said softly. As they walked out from the shelter of the trees and back onto the open trail, the morning sun rose higher, brightening the path ahead. Caleb felt a quiet strength within him, and Naomi walked with a calm sense of purpose. They didn't know exactly what the day would bring, but they felt a growing certainty that they were getting closer to something important, something hopeful and heartwarming waiting just beyond the next horizon. And together they moved forward, step by step, guided by trust, kindness, and the gentle promise of reunion. The morning air was soft and bright as Caleb and Naomi continued along the trail. The sun had risen fully now, casting golden light across the rolling hills. Everything looked calm and welcoming, the kind of morning that felt like a gentle invitation to move forward. Daisy trotted steadily beside Caleb, her hooves making quiet impressions in the soft earth. Naomi walked close, her bag resting lightly on her shoulder, and her eyes scanned the path ahead, filled with quiet hope. They spoke little, but that was fine. Neither needed constant conversation. Sometimes the world spoke better in silence, especially when hearts carried shared understanding. The previous day's journey had already formed a bond between them, one built from trust, patience, and small gestures of kindness. Caleb admired her quiet strength, and Naomi felt reassured by his steady presence. As they approached a gentle curve in the trail, the land opened up to a stretch of wildflowers and low shrubs. The colors were vibrant in the morning sunlight, purples, yellows, and whites swaying in the breeze. Naomi paused for a moment, bending to touch a flower, and Caleb watched her with a soft smile. Even in the midst of her long journey, she found moments of beauty. That ability to see goodness and calm in simple things reminded Caleb why he respected her so deeply. "You've got a good eye for this land," Caleb said softly, gesturing toward the wildflowers. "It's easy to miss them if you're focused only on the trail." Naomi smiled faintly, her eyes returning to the flowers before glancing at him. "Flowers remind me home," she said. "They grow where people care for them." Caleb nodded, understanding. Then maybe this is a good sign for your journey, he said. Flowers grow best where care is given, just like families. She looked at him for a long moment, her lips curved into a small, warm smile. Yes, she said softly. They continued walking, their steps steady. The sun climbed higher, and the trail gradually led them toward a small creek that glimmered in the sunlight. The sound of running water brought a sense of calm to both of them. Caleb stopped Daisy near the edge so she could drink, and Naomi knelt beside the water, dipping her hands in to splash her face lightly. The coolness refreshed her, and her tired eyes brightened a little. Feeling better? Caleb asked with a gentle tone. Naomi nodded. Yes. Water helps. She paused and looked at the creek, tracing its path with her finger. Water always moves, never stops. That's true, Caleb replied. It keeps going and it finds its way, sometimes slowly, sometimes faster, but it always moves forward. Naomi seemed to consider that. She placed her hands over her lap and looked thoughtfully at the sparkling creek. I want to move forward too, she said quietly. Find family, see happiness. Caleb felt a warmth in his chest. He could see the determination and hope in her eyes, even though the journey had been long and tiring. And we will, he said gently. We'll keep going until we find them. They set off again, the trail rising gradually through gentle hills. As they walked, Naomi began to share more about her memories, small stories about her family and the life she had known before she was separated from them. She spoke of simple joys, the songs her mother sang in the evening, the way her younger brother laughed when he ran through the fields, and the small meals her family shared together. Caleb listened carefully, imagining the warmth of that home, the love she had carried with her even through the long journey. At one point she paused and looked back at Caleb. You very kind, she said softly. You walk with me, you help. Caleb felt a gentle blush rise in his cheeks, though he quickly smiled. I could say the same to you, he replied. You've been very brave. Naomi's lips curved into a small, appreciative smile. She looked down at her hands, then back up at the horizon. Brave only because I must. They continued quietly for a time, the trail gradually bringing them closer to the area where Naomi hoped to find her family. Birds flew overhead, singing their morning songs, and the breeze carried the scent of wild grasses and flowers. Caleb noticed the light in her eyes, hope mixed with determination. It was a light that kept growing the further they traveled. Finally, as the sun rose fully, they reached the top of a small hill that overlooked a valley below. Caleb stopped Daisy, letting her catch her breath, and Naomi stood beside him. The valley stretched out wide and open, and there in the distance she saw it, smoke rising gently from a cluster of tents. Her heart skipped a beat. That may be them, she whispered, her voice trembling with hope. Caleb followed her gaze. The sight was promising. There were signs of life, friendly activity, and movement in the tents that matched what she had described about her family's camp. He looked at her with encouragement. It looks like it, he said softly. Let's go carefully. Naomi nodded, determination and excitement shining in her expression. She led the way down the gentle slope, careful not to rush, making sure every step was steady. Caleb followed behind, supporting her silently, knowing that the moment ahead was important. As they neared the camp, Naomi slowed slightly, her eyes scanning for familiar faces. A young boy emerged from behind a tent, carrying a small bundle. He paused for a moment, looking around with wide eyes. When he spotted Naomi, his face lit up, and he ran toward her with laughter spilling freely from his lips. Naomi, he called, his voice filled with joy. Tears welled in Naomi's eyes, and she ran to meet him. Their embrace was quiet but full of warmth and love. Caleb watched silently, moved by the scene. This was what she had been seeking all along, and now it was finally within her grasp. Her brother looked at Caleb briefly, curiosity in his eyes. Naomi smiled at him and said softly, This, my friend, he helped me. Caleb nodded with a gentle smile. Hello, he said. I'm glad to meet you. The reunion continued with calm laughter and tender words. Naomi's parents appeared next, rushing to greet her with care and love. Caleb stood slightly apart, letting the family have their moment, though they soon welcomed him with quiet gratitude. He felt humbled to witness the joy that had been waiting for her all along. After a while, Naomi turned to Caleb. Thank you, she said softly. Without your help, I would not find them. Caleb shook his head, his eyes kind. You would have found them anyway, he said. I just walked a little with you. Naomi smiled, warmth spreading across her face. No, you walk made easier, made safe. Caleb felt a quiet satisfaction. That was enough for him. He didn't need accolades or thanks. Seeing her reunited with her family was reward enough. The family invited Caleb to share a simple meal with them, and he accepted. They ate together, sharing bread, fruits, and gentle conversation. Caleb learned more about Naeli's life and her people. The stories were full of love, tradition, and care for one another. Every word made Caleb feel grateful that he had been part of her journey. As the afternoon sun began to lower, Caleb realized it was time to continue his own journey back home. He mounted Daisy, and Naeli and her family walked with him to the edge of the camp to see him off. The parting was calm and heartfelt. "Will you visit?" Naeli asked softly. "I would like that," Caleb replied. "If you'll have me." She nodded, a small smile brightening her face. "Yes, you are friend." Caleb tipped his hat and rode slowly down the trail, glancing back every few moments. He felt a sense of peace unlike any he had known in a long time. The sun lowered, painting the land in warm golds and soft pinks. The horizon stretched endlessly, filled with possibilities and hope. As he rode, Caleb reflected on the journey. He realized that kindness could travel far, that small gestures of support could change someone's path entirely. The journey had begun as a simple ride to a trading post, but it had turned into a lesson in patience, courage, and the quiet power of trust. He thought about Naeli, her determination, her gentle spirit, and the way she found beauty even in small things. He felt inspired by her ability to move forward despite exhaustion, to keep hope alive even when the path seemed uncertain. Caleb knew he would carry the memory of their journey forever. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, Caleb had returned to familiar trails near his own home. Daisy moved steadily, as if she too understood that the day had been meaningful. Caleb breathed in the cool evening air, feeling the satisfaction of knowing he had helped someone find what was most important to them: family, hope, and love. Later that night, as Caleb lay under a wide blanket of stars, he thought about the simple yet profound truths he had learned. Life was full of unexpected paths, moments of chance, and quiet encounters that could leave lasting impressions. He realized that sometimes, all a person needed was a companion walking beside them, someone who offered kindness without expectation, and the courage to keep moving forward. He smiled softly, thinking of Naeli reunited with her family, and of the gentle river where they had first met. That morning, that moment, and the steps they had taken together would always remain in his heart. And as the stars twinkled above, Caleb felt a quiet, unwavering sense of hope, not just for Naeli, but for the world itself. The frontier was wide and vast, filled with endless trails, soft winds, and quiet possibilities. And in that vastness, Caleb understood that every act of care, every gesture of kindness, could leave an imprint that lasted far longer than anyone could see. He drifted to sleep beneath the stars, carrying with him the warmth of friendship, the joy of a family reunited, and the certainty that even small journeys, taken with care and compassion, could lead to the most extraordinary destinations.